Okay, and our final speaker, Joan Mulvihill.
Geo and thanks. Owen knows I do all my best thinking in the car. Whenever I write a talk or anything, he'd say, how long does it take you to write that? And I'd say, an hour. He said, how do you do it in an hour? I said, I know, it'll take me an hour to write it. It takes me about a month of driving constantly up and down to Dublin to think it all through and what I'm going to say. So seeing as you asked me yesterday, and I had one drive home.
No pressure. One
drive home yesterday evening, and I was in a car load of crazy people on the way down here. I've had the 1 hour, basically, to figure out what I was going to say. And it was very nice, because you've all been asking me, what am I going to talk about? And I've said coyly, I don't know. Truth is, not entirely sure. So, what happened is, Owen is a great man for ideas, and one of the ideas that he had for this Kong, and for this evening in particular, was to get someone on in a creative career. So, he tried poets, he tried writers, he tried artists. And he said, sure, Joan, you'll do that. So I'm calling myself, as of this evening, the Kong artist. And I'm going to, so something's I've been doing a bit of something, since I was that big, but I've been doing a little bit more of it recently. So, and I've been talking to Owen about it, and he's been really curious, actually, constantly pushing me about how I do it and how I come up with it. And the truth is, while I've always done it, I've never done it properly. So what I want to talk to you is about, this was my pearl of wisdom when I was meant to be at the Residents Association meeting last night. If there's an accident on that bridge, it's on you, Owen. I wasn't there. How I am going from someone who can to someone who is. So, what is it that I can do, and what might it be that I am? Okay, so, did you say down or over? I'm really quite across. Okay, someone who can, but someone who doesn't. So that's something I can do. So I do that it's in my room. The signature at the bottom is in joined up writing, so I was definitely in secondary school. And I do know for a fact it was 1985. So I was 12 or 13 or whatever. And I'd set up that little still life in the kitchen at home. And that's a vase of my mother's and some eggs from the fridge. And that's what I did with pastels. And I was like 13. And that's someone who can. So I'm sure those of you who have kids, you see them all doing their artwork and sketching at home. Sure, loads of you can draw too. And you just don't do it anymore. So loads of us can, but don't. And so I can do it, but I don't often do it. And then, you go on with your life and you go into college and you go into your career, and it's something, you wanted to do it in college, and then your mother says, no, go and do a sensible degree, which you did. And I did commerce, and she said, oh, it's a hobby, you can do it in your spare time later on. You'll come back to it later. And I'm going, no, I doubt it. And then, once every 3, 4, or 5 years, I paint something. Now, why did I not paint more often than that? Well, there was a million reasons. But mostly it was fear. Because every time I did one, I felt I got lucky. I just got lucky. That came out well, and I got lucky. And so I was terrified if I did another one in quick succession, I would literally be pushing my luck. So best not do that. Just do one nice one every so often. And then as Lee said, and I kind of wrote it down, I'm going to say it wrong. What you need to hear is what holds you back. And I have done a great disservice to my mother for years. I didn't realize this until about a month ago. I always painted, when I did something like that when I was in school, your mammy says, gosh, that's really good. And it's pretty, it's like the things that you see. That's what people used to paint, didn't they? Like, you go to school and they paint still lifes and stuff like that. And then I got a little bit older. Did you say down or over? It's over. Okay. Someone who can to someone who does. So, I got a little bit older, I moved on, and then people paint landscapes, so I'll do that. Now, I have to say, I used to always paint in acrylics, which is what that is over there. I did that last Christmas. I set a challenge for myself. I said I'm going to paint 5 paintings in 5 days. Day 3, don't push your luck, quit while you're ahead. And day 4 and 5, I made frames instead, and I said, but it's okay. I'm still in the game. I'm still in the game. It's all right. But I don't really do it, and that's pretty passable. That's all right. My dad thinks that's nice. That's kind of his style, and my mother thinks it's lovely, very pleasant, you know, and it's acrylics. In an odds to earlier on, I had a huge fear of always painting with oil, and I thought that was for grown-ups, again, for proper artist people. And that was very complicated. And then most of you who know me know I lost somebody very close to me 7 years ago. And 4 weeks after he died, I took out a set of oil paints that were in a box that I had never touched because they terrified me. And I said, worst thing I've ever imagined happening to me has already happened. What could possibly go wrong in this box of oil paint? Seriously. So I did one. And then so I do a bit in oil, but that's acrylic over there. And then 17th of September, a friend of mine was going to an art fair, and she said, do you want to go into the ride? And I'll come along for a drive. And I said, grand, and went along. And I actually bought a wedding present for my sister. She got married 4 years ago. Painting is called Storm Gathering. I told her, don't take it personally. There's 6 magpies there, and 6 for joy, or 6 for gold. So take that as the sign and not the storm bit. But there was some other paintings there, and I'm going, damn it, I'm not buying that. Sure, I know I can do a version of that myself. And so I went home that evening and I took a canvas off a wall of painting I'd done, and I said, that is just shite. And I just took it off the wall and I threw paint on it. I painted over it, and I did that. It's terrible lighting. It's much nicer in real life. Anyway, someone who can, someone who does. So I did that a few weeks ago, and sure, they were out then and the place was already, oh, see, much better. Thank you, Joe. He's my agent. So it's much nicer. And actually what I did was, which was the first time I'd done anything interesting, I actually used wood to paint. I didn't use paintbrush. So I scraped all the branches on with the edge of a piece of wood. So when you look at that painting in relief, you can see every single twig and branch, and they're not even lines on it. So anyway, that was a bit of fun. And then the kitchen was already a mess. So the next evening I went home and I did another one and whatever. But anyway, it was all a bit of crack, but I knew I was going to do what I always do, which is put them all away, and maybe 3 years later I'll have a go again and see if I could get lucky. There's something going on. So anyway, then that happened. Now that is a complete accident of timing. I was a member of a sketching group just online, as in, when I say a member of a sketching group online, they sketched, I looked at their posts. And they would put a theme up every week, and the theme that week was collage. And Tracy Keogh, who you've all met, she's been here a couple of times, Tracy had put up a LinkedIn post during the week, and there was a really nice image in this article. It was like that cities, those lights moving really fast, and I just loved the image, just the lines of colour, the way they were. And so the theme that week was collage, and for some bizarre reason, I'd never done anything with collage in my entire flipping life. I had to look it up online. Mod Podge is the stuff you have to buy, and I did that for the crack. And I'm not really sure what that is, but I had the most fun I'd ever had with a brush or anything. And I realised too that half the reason I didn't paint for years is it was boring. Like, I could do it, and it killed 3 hours, and it's easier than going for a run, so you could justify, you know, spending the 3 hours is not a total waste. I wasn't keeping up with the Kardashians or something. But yeah, I didn't really enjoy it. And I didn't really enjoy it either because I suppose too, a lot of the time I was painting what I thought my mother would like. I was still painting like a 12-year-old. I was still finding the grown-up thing that other people painted and doing a mediocre version of that. So I was just a bit of an old person. I was still someone who can, but not someone who did. I wasn't doing anything that was authentically me. So the week after that, this is what I called it last night in my fit of creativity. I'm calling myself the accidental restartist, if I'm not the Kong artist. I'm the accidental restartist. So when I said at the start, going from someone who can to someone who is, I suppose that word is artist. And to call myself one would be the greatest crime of imposter syndrome that has ever graced this stage. So I'm still not going to call myself one. But I will call myself the accidental restartist. So what happened after that is I started doing stuff like this. So that's a little bit more collage. And I started thinking, and you know what, you guys have all really helped me here this evening, so thanks David for the next line. Looking at what you have. Never stop looking. So there were two things on David's list. Looking at what I have and never stop looking. One of the things I noticed one evening when I had all the paintings that I'd done in the last while lined up together, I said, my God, you can tell I grew up in a landlocked, lake-locked county in Longford, because most beautiful landscape, seascapes that I see, they're sea. People paint the sea, they paint rivers, they paint the lakes in Ireland, and not a drop of water. Not a drop. I am from a landlocked county. And so I grew up around farmland and trees and bogs. And for 8 weeks now, one a week, farmland, forests and bogs. And I'm painting what I know and what I love. But what I'm doing is I'm painting them my way. And that first accident with collage started me thinking about deconstructing scenes, because that image that Tracy had put up was a city, and it was one of those ones, you know, with the slow exposure or the big exposure stretches all the colours. I said, how could I do that from a normal photograph? Just in my own mind, recreate that image in an abstract format that would still look like what it is, but would be a different interpretation, because I just love the blocks of colours. I loved putting all those blocks of colours together. And I love the clever things you can do with collage, like creating almost like a stained glass window using the branches. And then why would every bit behind every branch be the same color necessarily? So I loved doing that. I loved throwing a splash of pink in the middle, because there's pink in those fields. It's just not necessarily that way. So breaking it all down into those component parts, really looking at something and saying, what are the colors there? How is it I want to reflect that in my style? So then something else happened. I did that one on the left. That is a bluebell. That's bluebells in Charleville Forest, near Tullamore. And I've been there with my sister a few times. And it's just bluebells. I love them, and they're in a forest. And it was a total abstraction. And then creating. And what I do is, so now So to explain the process, yeah, that's why I'm meant to be here, talking to you about it. Owen wanted me to talk about the process part and how I do it, or how I think about it. And one of the things that has really changed for me in all of this is I always, as I said, felt I was getting lucky. And so how now am I able to do one a week? I've taken the luck out of it. I've developed a process for it. So every day, if I have a book that I carry around with me, and if I see a scene that I really like, I do a pen drawing of it first, or a couple of drafts of it, and I sketch it all out, but with a ruler and a pen, at a level of organisation I have never experienced in my entire life in anything else I've ever done. And then before I go to paint, I sit down and I get out my colouring pencils and I colour in my little line drawing. So I block out the colours and I create the shapes and everything, and then I paint. And the other interesting thing about me painting is, most of you who know me know I'm a bit of a talker, and I generally appreciate noise, and I don't concentrate on anything for terribly long periods of time. I would have to get up and have a break. When I paint, it's something that's really strange. On the mindfulness scale, I can do 8 hours in total silence, doing absolutely nothing other than every single little section at a time. And I do all this with masking tape. So every little sliver gets sectioned out with masking tape and gets painted in. So you mix the colour just for that section. If you have a bleed on the masking tape, you may have to go and do a whole section, or indeed two. Again, I have learned, don't hold the toothbrush in your mouth when you're doing other things, because if you drop it, it goes on the canvas and you screw things up. So I have learned a lot along the way. So this is finding something and evolving it and making it more and more. But then what happened is somebody wanted to give me quite a significant amount of money for that one, and I said, okay. And then they liked it so much, out of the blue one evening, about 2 weeks later, the same person texted me and said, would you do another one? Okay. And that's that one. And my sister looked at that one and she said, you're not giving her the same style again. You're not giving her an abstract painting. I said, but that's what I do. And suddenly I realized I owned my own style. This is what I do. I can do the other stuff for you, but I'm not very good at it. And millions of people do those. And what I wanted to do was something that was authentically me. You'll also know this is collage again. That's the newspaper. That's the books list. I like throwing in a bit of collage still. And so one of the things I've also discovered in all this is I'm developing elements to it and adding to them. So if I was to think of it like letters in an alphabet, I'm trying to create my own alphabet and to make words. So one of my letters is, for example, that sliver over there, that's actually a gold metallic paint. So when light catches that one sliver, it kind of glistens a little bit more. So I'll either use a piece of gold or I'll use a bit of collage, but that whole abstract thing is consistent. But then I did that, and I said, well, I want to put a very real back into it too, because there's some things you just can't, or I don't feel comfortable putting into complete abstract. But I wanted to keep the balance right, so I did that, and I put that on Facebook on a Sunday, and someone came to my house on a Tuesday and said, would you take a check? I said, okay. And so that was nice. And so I really liked that. And one of the things that I thought was lovely, I put it up on Instagram. And my mother had just texted me going, because I send it to her every Sunday. It's called Some Painting. I send it to my mom and my two sisters. And Mommy's usually first to come back. And she said, oh, where did you get the ideas? And I was telling her, I said, oh, every day I drive west. I drive down the M4, I get to the toll plaza, and there's that moment just when you go through after the toll, and you come around the bend, and literally the whole countryside opens up in front of you. And I get this rush of, literally every day, I get to have that feeling that I'm going home, or on a Friday, it's like I've got my weekend now, or whatever it is. Randomly, a woman I have no idea who she is on Instagram said, oh my God, because I just called it Happiness is Driving Westward, said, oh my God, that bit when you come around from the toll plaza and going, someone else saw what I saw. And the motorway is not even in it, but she knew where it was. She knew that Happiness Westward is that point in the road, and that was a really nice feeling. But that brings me to, this. Who decides whether I'm someone who is or someone who isn't? And how is it decided? So who decides if I'm an artist or I'm not? Who gets to adjudicate that and give me that label? And if whoever is doing it, how is it decided? What's the fair metric? So by coincidence, the lunatics in the car this afternoon did, of their own behest and nothing to do with me leading the conversation, they were talking about Da Vinci. And apparently he had a chip on his old shoulder because he didn't have the qualifications for all of this, and I don't. So I'm going, am I allowed to call myself an artist if I haven't gone to university to do it because my mammy made me do a commerce degree instead? Or can you just be one? Can you just be one because you say you are? So damn it, I decided I am. So everyone's asking me what am I going to do next week when I'm finished in DCU. I keep saying I'm going to retire for 2 months. No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this for 2 months, and I'm going to try. So when is a musician? I didn't bother finishing the whole sentence. When is a musician a musician? When is a musician? When is an author? When is a poet, a comedian, an artist, an entrepreneur? Like, who decides? Is it your full-time job? Because I don't know any actors who are starting off in their career wouldn't call themselves an actor even if they're bussing tables. Or how many people who are artists, either professional, as in have studied and trained to, and are not doing other jobs. So you decide, I think, yourself, which is the priority in yourself. Who's decide that Paddy is not a comedian? I think Paddy's a comedian. Paddy, would you like to be a comedian? No, you sure? Okay. But you know what I mean. And when is an entrepreneur? Are you only an entrepreneur if you've sold your business? Are you only an entrepreneur if you've made it big? Or if you've got loads of failures, are you not one? So you know what? Even if these are shit, they're still mine. And I've decided I can call myself the accidental beast artist if I wanted to. And then that's the question of, is it defined by the effort or the output? So is the definition of whether or not I'm an artist, whether or not you're producing art, or the quality of it, or is it the process? And if it's the process, and this is what Owen has been prodding me on for ages now, pushing me, so what is it you're thinking and how are you doing it? And I'm going, it is literally obsessive, and it's this thing that David said about, really looking. One thing that has changed, I think, in the last 2 or 3 months is I am searching all the time for what I want to do next. I'm thinking about what other ones would I want to put in a series. I'm thinking about how I would deconstruct that scene. I am looking at colours all of the time. I've always done it a little bit. I'd find myself accidentally observing and noticing things, and my sister would say, gosh, I don't really, she doesn't see things like I do. I think I've always done it a little bit, but I am now positively, if I'm outside, I am looking all of the time. I am looking at colours, I am looking at skies. I made the comment to you about the walls. They're not, it's just actively noticing everything. And I'm really, really enjoying that. And, I've been here at this event, all of the bar one, I think, and then the broken tooth incident. But yes, I came 5 times. I left prematurely once. But I have come down here, and I've not always been in great form down here. I have written posts for here going, I think I might be a little depressed. I have. It was in one of my blog posts. You can read it. It's a couple of years ago. I put crazy stuff out there. And I've not always been in. And I think 2 years ago I was down here going, oh my God, I'm out of a job. What am I going to do? I'm finishing a job next Friday. This is not the face of unemployment. This is the face of the 1st of December. I get to run, paint, drink, eat, repeat is what I'm calling it. No, I get to paint, and I can never paint more than, I think my max will be 2 in a week, and I don't think I could do 4 in a fortnight. I think I'll probably do 3 in 2 weeks because of the planning time it takes to do it. But it's not a reluctance to push my luck now. It is, I have a process and a methodology. And I think when I found that, and I'm honing it all the time, I have found that I don't have as much risk anymore. I know what I'm doing. I rarely said that in my life. I actually know what I'm doing, which is really unusual. And then there's the bit, that's Carley Bog in Keena. I am literally obsessed with our bogs. And because bogs are actually layers and layers of history, I painted this last Sunday. It was the night after the match. So I thought I'd put a layer of new history in it. So there's all the rugby team from last weekend. I just thought I'd put them in the bog. And then some things are best buried in the past. And there's Brian O'Driscoll buried in the past with his spearing.
Is it for sale? From letters for the newspapers?
They were from the newspaper, yeah. And so I know that some people will love it. And for the first time in my life, I really couldn't give a continental if some people hate it. In fact, I want some people to hate it. I don't want to paint the pictures that my mammy would like anymore. I want to paint stuff that some people will like and some people will not like. Because if some people don't like it, then it's blah. So I don't want to do blah. The only thing I said about my mother is I have underestimated my mother for years. My mother loves them. She finds the other stuff blah. Who knew? 76-year-old maths teaching Lily thought the other stuff was blah as well. So anyway, we're on the same page. And then it was funny what David said about the morning after test. I have a morning after test, so I paint all day from 11 until maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night on the same painting, like stripe by stripe by stripe by stripe. And then I'll put it on the wall. And actually once or twice now, I've taken it back off the wall. I have to put it on a wall to look at it, and then I've taken everything back out again, going, fuck, it's not right. Do a little peek. But I hate it going that night, going to bed. I absolutely hate it. And I think it's because I'm hating what I've just been through to get to it. I've loved doing it, but it's frustrated me or irked me, or I feel it's wrong. They haven't all settled into themselves yet. And then I wake up in the morning, and every time I'm finished one, it has become my new favourite. That's my latest baby. And the only thing is, Mum would always say to me, "Oh, did you not sell them?" And I'm going, no, because I was in the get lucky phase. I'm now not in the get lucky phase anymore. I find it really hard to sell them because I love them. And that's a really cocky, possibly arrogant thing to say, but I love them. I genuinely love them. They work really well in my house. They're what I like, and they may not be what everyone else likes, but I am really freaking okay with that. And so it is. I always hate it, and then I love it, and then there's that bit of I have to let it go, and that's kind of hard, but I'll get over it. Because when someone says, will you take a check and you don't have a job next week, you say yeah. No, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because there will be more. And I think that's a really reassuring thing. I think it's something I've always been probably not very sure of myself about. And I am really unsure of myself speaking about this to you guys this evening because I do feel like a con artist. But Owen, that's my best shot of being an artist for the first time. Are you okay with that? Can I go over there now and say thanks?